My name is Kimberly Blackburn, and this is my research proposal. Does low self-esteem increase the likelihood of criminal behavior? So, for our introduction, self-esteem is closely related to self-image, and both feed off of each other. For example, if you have low self-esteem, it can begin due to a low self-image. Your self-image is, of course, how we see ourselves and how we believe others see us, and self-esteem is how someone interprets their self-image. As we grow, we have many influences that shape our self-esteem and self-image, ranging from personal to environmental, and these shape the base of what you will believe about yourself and your capabilities, such as your thoughts, relationships, experiences, culture, religious affiliations, and our perceived status in society. That's why we're constantly being told to be careful how we speak to young and highly impressionable children, as well as to ourselves, because we become what we perceive we are expected to be by ourselves and by the people around us. Healthy self-esteem fits in with Maslow's hierarchy of needs and is just as important as love and having a healthy environment. It not only allows us as individuals to be happier, but it also inspires us to live well and to become productive members of society, instilling in us a feeling of belonging and being accepted. While low self-esteem inhibits an individual from having motivation to make better choices and keeps us from acknowledging that we have a lot of choices in life due to a sense of not feeling like we've earned it or like we're worthy of having something of value or being someone of value. So our research question will be, does low self-esteem increase the likelihood of criminal behavior? And the hypothesis is that there will be a positive correlation between low self-esteem and criminal behavior. Like if you have low self-esteem, you are more likely to participate in criminal acts. As a scientific community, there is also an agreement that there's a lot of power in our thoughts, and it is even backed by scriptural. And if we look at Proverbs 23, verse 7, it's summarized as saying that as a person thinketh, so are they. And that basically says that we will become what we think that we are, or what others think that we should be. And it's backed with other research, such as putting things out into the universe. Like the more negative thoughts you have, the more negative things will happen. And likewise, if you focus on the positive things, then more positive things will come to you. The brain is a highly effective tool when it comes to figuring out not only what you want, but what you can get and the way you get it. So to start off, this is our list of reasons for low self-esteem, as well as comparing those to reasons for criminal behavior in general. And it is not a mistake that the two above lists are the same. Biological predispositions are prevalent on both sides, and the factors can be autonomic or neurobiological. Individuals are prone to certain mental health problems due to biology, and environment can play a big role in how a child develops. For like biology, some people are more likely to have depression or anxiety based on how their parents are. So if the mother is having a very hard pregnancy and she's like depressed a lot of it, then the baby is less likely to be able to have the positive endorphins when they're born, because that wasn't given to them in the womb. The environment is important because if a person is living in contentious atmospheres or in divorced families, it can lead to low self-esteem and a higher chance of criminal behavior. This can also come from communities or neighborhoods that the individual lives in that have like high crime rates or a lot of gang activity. Relationship with parents can lead to both outcomes, whether it be disapproval from authoritative figures, emotionally distant parents, or if there are personal issues between the parents that are taken out on the children. Both groups can also show severe negative experiences with abuse in their backgrounds. Like low self-esteem generally shows more mental or emotional abuse, while in general criminal behavior, there is a lot of physical and sexual abuse, all of which can lead to substance abuse, first to address the already low self-esteem that they suffer from, and then it can lead to more criminal behavior because it negatively affects self-control and the decision-making process. Other experiments have found that self-esteem is a definitive pro-social factor. There have been studies that investigate how a child's environment and their family situation affect how their self-esteem is, whether it will be positive or negative. In the second bullet point, the meta-analysis for the studies between 1990 and 2015, they found that in both adults and juveniles, those with lower self-esteem are more likely to have participated in illegal activity, and those with higher self-esteem were less likely. In the third bullet point, they used a study that included 690 boys, all the age of 9, that were watched for 5 years, and those boys were later categorized into aggressive, assertive, or consistently non-aggressive. And they found that aggressive boys experienced more direct parental attacks like physical or verbal abuse and rejection than those in the other groups. And they also had more direct attacks on their sense of security, which can undermine the conception of their self-worth and teach them that the world is a very dangerous place. Lastly, Tosh discovered through his interviews that those who showed more violence in their behavior, that was mostly due to their defense of their self-worth or image, and the less they thought of themselves, the more violent they were and the harder they would fight and the more aggressiveness they would show in order to portray that they were better or that their self-image was strong than others. There are typically two methods to getting data and looking at it, and it's quantitative or qualitative. Both of these methods can be useful in our research, and they can be used separately, but it really just depends on what you're looking for. For our research, we'll be using a combination of both methods, since together they give different perspectives on the data. This isn't an experiment where we can just look at numbers and say, oh yeah, this is how many, or vice versa. We have to use the qualitative to actually see how the person sees themselves and to be telling us what their home lives are like. So we're also looking for qualities or characteristics. So we need both of these for our research. For our groups, we would like to use adolescents ages 12 to 18. The teenage years is when most adolescents make the biggest changes in their lives, including their involvement in crime. It's also the age where many of them are coming into their own skin and going through like a rebellious stage. The groups can be taken from different schools or the same school, but we have to make sure that we have a diverse enough population from both sides, whether they're the low risk or the high risk for low self-esteem. Parental permission will be needed since we're working with adolescents, and there will be an emphasis put on confidentiality of the answers, and the questionnaires will be anonymous. As discussed earlier, each area that's known to affect self-esteem will be up for discussion, with asking the child how much they do or do not agree with statements on a scale of 1 to 10. For example, do you believe that your parents have a good relationship? And they can mark 1 for no, I don't agree, or 10 for yeah, my parents are great, and blah, blah, blah. The information from both groups will have to be kept separate, so we can better see what positive and negative self-esteem, how that will affect the individual. Yeah. So this is what a graph might look like when the information is compiled. Group 1, the red, represents the children who are portrayed as having positive self-esteem and the likelihood that they will go on to commit crime, while group 2, the pink, represents those who are considered at risk for low self-esteem and more likely to commit crime. This shows on a scale that there is significant danger to those with low self-esteem, that they will be involved in crime later on, whether severe or not. So for our findings, we are assuming that those who have low self-esteem will be more likely to participate in crime, while those that have healthy self-esteem will be less likely. And our final finding will show that self-esteem does have an effect on the likelihood of someone turning to crime. Future research, there are a lot of different avenues that this research could take, and it will continue to prove that self-esteem is a pivotal point of a person's development and life course. Gender is important because men and women process things differently, and women feel things deeper than men do. Age also affects us because as we age, we go through different phases, with crime often tapering off for an individual as they get older. Ethnicity will be a big one because we often hear that minority groups are shown to have less help in many different aspects of the justice system than majority groups. Like a lot of them live in poverty, or more of them live in gang areas, just more dangerous environments. And the too high or self-esteem is just as dangerous as the too low self-esteem, because if you have too high self-esteem, it can lead you to being more narcissistic, and that can cause problems in the criminal justice system as well. These avenues will require further investigation to really cement the research. So in conclusion, we believe that positive self-esteem is important for an individual to become a successful member of society, hence why we have to start building positive self-esteem from the moment that they are conceived. The reasons for low self-esteem are comparable to those that have been discovered with other studies, and they are much the same forces driving an individual to crime. Research that has been done previously has given us the stepping stones to understanding how the earliest influences affect how a person will behave later on in life, and that it's preventable, with this research reinforcing that low self-esteem can be a leading cause of crime. The earlier we can recognize the warning signs of low self-esteem, the earlier we can help the individual through therapy and correct unhealthy thinking patterns before they grow into juveniles or adults who are much more likely to participate in criminal activity. So this will be more working with the root of the problem rather than just chopping off the branches and hoping that they get better. Thank you for listening, and have a nice night.